Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for ALG's Capitol Hill Updates. I'm Alan Nathan, known to most as the host of Battle Line with Alan Nathan, and today we're joined by Dr. Michael Burgess. He's a Republican, and he's a representative from the great state of Texas, serving the good folks out of the 26th District. He serves on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, as well as the House Senate Joint Economic Committee. Good to have you.
Thanks, Alan. Great to be with you.
Always a pleasure. Congressman, I want to thank you first for allowing us to come to your offices today. I appreciate it. And I want to get right into the issue of health care reform, but also later on, we're going to be talking about the developing results from the stimulus package, the recent fighting over the $410 billion budget, also the pending threat of government censorship against talk radio. But first, let's go ahead and talk about health care. Now, I had a chance to read one of your articles not long ago in Roll Call newspaper about the need for insurance reform to open the market to true competitive influences. That's your quotation. Now, you're against the Democrats' more collectivist approach to health care, but you also bemoan the GOP for their lack of market-based reforms. You called it, quote, incongruous and inexcusable. How do we move forward differently?
Well, I think I was actually decrying just the lack of ideas on the GOP side, not so much that they weren't market-based, the ideas that were there. This has been a tough one for me since we lost the majority in 2006. I thought my side would be much farther along with having developed a coherent strategy when it comes to health care, because I think that was perhaps one of the perceived weaknesses when we lost the majority, that we don't, as Republicans, we don't talk about health care in a way that resonates with the American people. And yet at the same time, when you think of health care in America, I mean, it is a fundamental freedom issue, and that's our stuff. That's our side. We should be the ones to articulate that. We should be the ones to argue for that quite forcefully. Now, where we are right now, of course, the President has sort of outlined some very, very broad principles. And I'll just tell you, I'm surprised by this, because I thought at this point, now what are we, 50 days into the Obama administration, I thought we'd see some fairly detailed proposals coming out, and not just on health care, on the financial rescue package, even Afghanistan, we had the additional troops going, but we didn't have a lot of detail as to how they were to be used and what the overall plan was. So an administration that is big on ideas, but light on details. Now, last Thursday, I was invited down to the White House to participate in the healthcare summit, or the forum that they had down at the White House.
What was your impression of that?
Well, again, I thought we would see a much more detailed proposal. And the President said he's there to provide guideposts and guidelines and perhaps some budget boundaries, but it's up to Congress to write the bills. Now, good news for me as a member of the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Health, that's great. Let's write the bill in committee. I've worried from the beginning that this cake was already baked, and they had a bill over in the Speaker's office, and at the appropriate time they'll pull the lever, out it will come, we'll vote on it on the floor, and off it'll go to the Senate.
But it's not the case.
I don't know. And the President, in his remarks to us after the so-called breakout sessions, was that he would provide the guidelines and guideposts, but we were to write the bill. If that's the case, I'm okay with that. Now, I've got some ideas, and I appreciate being included.
Actually, you do have a lot of ideas, and I want to just sorry to interpose, but I got to ask this. Now, referring to the volume of Democratic plans getting proposed, you likened it to when famed oil man T. Boone Pickens once said, "A fool with a plan beats a genius without one almost every time." Now, are there any aspects of the Democratic plans that might be more market-friendly than the rest of their agenda?
Well, again, we have not seen the specifics. Now,
but you know what he's been talking about in broad strokes.
Well, correct. I was a surrogate for the other side last fall, and so I heard his surrogates argue for his side. But it was always vague and always indistinct. It was oftentimes like trying to joust with a ghost. You never knew exactly where you were. Oh, I'm going to cover all kids, but we never defined what a kid was. Is it 19? Is it 25? Is it 30? I heard all of those ages mentioned during the course of the debate.
Well, the S-chip legislation takes it up to 25 years of age.
Well, 25 is where we are now. But again, there was the talk during the rhetoric during the campaign was we're going to have a mandate to cover children. The reality is we got last year's S-chip bill and we got it through, and this time it wasn't vetoed by the President. So that's where we are today with the children's health insurance. The other things that have been talked about, again, in fairness, I mean, it was difficult losing Tom Daschle as the designee. I mean, he wrote the book. He had this federal health board thing that he wanted to do, and then he's gone. And they had to quickly find a new replacement. It took them a month to do that.
That happens when you fail to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes.
Unless you run the IRS, apparently.
I lost my head. Forgive me.
Or are the chairman of the major tax writing body in the House of Representatives. Then perhaps it's not an issue. But Tom Daschle actually took himself up. I think he did the right thing, quite frankly. But again, it set them back sometimes. So where are we? Are we going to have a public option plan like was discussed in the campaign? I don't know. Are we going to have a federal health board like was discussed in Tom Daschle's book? I don't know. These are things that concern me deeply, because if we have a public option plan, it then sets the tone for what everything else will become. We've seen this so far with Medicare. What happens with Medicare? We cut the fees, or we try to cut the fees every year. Private insurance follows us along almost step for step. And as a consequence, we have indirectly federal price controls on health care in this country, delivered to us in kind of a backdoor way through the Medicare system.
So we wind up encountering the very thing we would normally try to avoid.
Correct. And I don't want to expect, if Medicare is the model for reform, aren't we obligated to get it right first before we expand it to other populations? And that would be my argument against that public option that they've talked about. Now, affordability is really the central issue when we talk about health care. Now, yes, people are concerned because there are so many people in this country who lack insurance. But again, it's an affordability issue really primarily. 80% of the people in this country who have insurance like the insurance they have and don't want to lose it. Again, that's an affordability issue because they're scared they won't be able to get something else.
Let's take a look at that affordability, because I'm looking at some of the other things you've said here. One of the things I want to ask you about is this. Can your healthcare market-based ideas really have a chance to reduce costs as long as both parties remain beholden to special interests? I mean, the Democrats want lower costs, but take money from the American Trial Lawyers Association, so they refuse to budge on the tort reform necessary to lower malpractice lawsuits that drive up high prices. The GOP, on the other hand, they're a whole different story. They want health care out of the workplace to lower costs, but yet they insist on still taking a lot of money from HMO lobbyists who have a vested interest in keeping health care in the workplace. We've been through this before.
1990s.
But they're still doing it.
No,
they're still doing it.
I don't know whether they are.
Lobbyists, check it out. Healthcare lobbyists,
I don't know whether they are or not, but
disproportionately donate to Republicans far more than Democrats. So as long as my point is this: as long as each party continues to take money, as long as each party continues to take money from those who seem to have a vested interest in each party's antithetical goals, how can either hope to make good on their aspirations?
Well, it's a rhetorical question. I don't know I don't pretend to have an answer for the entire.
Well, you would agree it would help doctors if we could have tort reform, right?
We've done it in Texas. We've demonstrated.
But therefore, it seems counterintuitive for the Democrats to say. So therefore, it seems counterintuitive for the Democrats to say, we want to lower prices, but we're going to still take money from the American Trial Lawyers Association, who have a negative direct impact on that ever happening. But we in the GOP, we want to pull the health care out of the workplace, but we're still going to take money from HMO lobbyists who never want that to happen. That's my point.
Well, I dispute the point that we want to pull it out of the workplace. I mean, I think if nothing...
Well, it supposedly would make things cheaper. Treat it like car insurance. You'd bring about a declination of cost,
I don't think anyone's
an increase in efficiency. You don't think so?
No, I don't. Well, during the whole point of the campaign, both sides emphasized that if you like what you've got, you can keep it. 160 million people in this country get their insurance through employer-sponsored insurance. That's a system that is not going anywhere anytime soon. Anything we do should build on that and strengthen what we've already got. I don't think anyone is seriously talking about undoing that. Now, the rhetoric of the campaign, the rhetoric of campaign ads might lead you to believe that, but if certainly anyone with any intelligence who studied the issue would know that was just purely campaign rhetoric.